In this video, I will explore 18 points we must acknowledge as true, and the idea that the hawk of every group should learn from the pharaoh through God's martial art language and communicate to their respective groups in a way they can understand. Think slow learner versus God's speed. Think about a plane and being prepared to take off from the runway. What speed do they need to learn to be ready and to pick up speed to take off and to cross over? So martial art, with the wordplay applied, one possibility is L-O's Ra, okay, the O reproductive cycle. True or try art, backwards, right? True or try. Okay. So pure, pay Ra, okay? The U becomes the A, right? Pay Ra. So the L-O's Ra, the reproductive cycle. The God is Ra, the reproductive cycle is Ra. And to be true, not the illusion, the art, but the truth. Try telling the truth, okay? And paying Ra homage, okay? Also spirit, we've gone over this many, many times. Martial, okay, the T is the plus, becomes Mary L. Think about a war bride, a war god. So the martial with the M-A-R-S-H-A-L, you know, L-O's Ra, and the martial with the M-A-R-T-I-A-L, Mary L. Okay, let's get right into this. I'm falling behind. Number one, God naturally outmaneuvers man to martial. This is part of why sparring is important. Number two, all groups that are plotting and their unnatural maneuvering makes people beneath the lukewarm if they try to use it as an example of outmaneuvering. Okay, so it makes these people beneath the lukewarm in society. So if you try to use your unnatural maneuvering, drugs and technology, to make a spiritual example, you're less than people who aren't religious. Okay. Number three, the works of the other martial artists enrage God and not just his representatives because of their emphasis on image. Number four, Har o Aries, right? Har where? Ari and Ra being in the Igbo Ukwu Empire, using martial arts logic, warfare, okay? Pharaoh logic. Because Nubia was at odds with Egypt, certainly Nekhen was at odds with Ethiopia and Nubia in the Old Kingdom, the only relevant kingdom in Egypt. Because the other ones went astray, so I put the emphasis and I decided to say it that way. Anyway, number five, hand gestures by martial arts societies in the jungle and symbols are similar. Number six, hardware, obelisk, Obi el ask, Obi all ask, great Obi spirit. Number seven, man is judged like a martial arts or warrior group trespassing against a king as an individual and a group. Okay, so trespassing into the kingdom. Diamond, right? Mind, demon, mining, gold. Why did gold have religious value? Because it was a bunch of materialistic ninnies from inferior cults that gave it that value, right? A gold digger is not exactly the ideal woman, you know, to a person who's spiritual, to say the least. Selling their souls. Number eight, the idea of man's work at this point is to give the souls of mankind to the devil and demon deities that made their culture. These ideas that allowed them to cheat and use psychology and illusion for power. Giving their souls and helping the devil takes others' souls, starting with their families, races, and groups, is an idea that predates Christianity by tens of thousands of years. So when you, propagate a demonic falsehood and you do things in a way that takes your soul, you're leading by example, you're impressing it upon your community, your family. So you're also causing their souls to be lost by association and so on. One way or another, by them being close to you, you get what I mean. The reasons are related to their complexes, and this is why there are demons of this complex and that. So the reason why we have demons of lust and gluttony and other sins is because these are the avenues. These are the dark angels, the fallen angels, the angles that you take when you fall out of grace, right? I'm going to pursue that lust. I'm going to work this angle of pursuing this lust and so on, or pursuing this murderous, unfairly murderous philosophy. Number nine, when choosing a site to build a village, one must consider nature, resources, martial arts, and religion. Number 10. So, think about Africa, right? It's not just they build this village in one place or anywhere else, right? You have to think about these things when you build that village. It is basically like your fort. You're holding it down. You have to think about military considerations, social, political, economic, and so on. Number 10. So the face of the Sphinx is emphasized since man's face, the high priest, the pharaoh, etc., reveals the nature of the deity through the spirit being expressed by the face, mind you, genetic expression, facial expressions, micro expressions, or one true God he worships as he goes to great lengths to achieve the appropriate spirit energy to take in the spirit. To keep an eye on someone is best done as a martial artist. Think ambush or observe, a burning sun bush, camouflage. Okay, observe, obi, serve. Number 12, save face versus saving race. Depending on how you define these things, one is better than the other. One phrase is better than the other. But certainly one idea is always better than the other. 12, martial arts systems that rule society these days want to protect their image in terms of racial characteristics and not save the most righteous ancestor spirit and take on the authentic face, right? Not the image, but the natural face one comes into that spirit creates. Facial expressions, gene expressions, etc. 13. The symbols the secret societies use are made as a reaction to the Sunlight Temple martial arts system from God. They are not true martial artists. Number 14. The martial is made from discipline, hard work, and natural selection relative to Light Sun Temple martial arts. Okay, so the way you martial it, the martial artist himself, and so on. Pharaoh, the top martial artist family, with secrets passed naturally by what the hawk picks up on. So there's certain unspoken things that father transmits and communicates to son and so on. Okay, priests are beneath, and parents in general. Priests are beneath with noble family members, and they are martial arts temples often emphasized. Okay, noble family members, they're in martial arts temples, often emphasizing lesser forms and one less relevant application of martial arts. Okay, so beneath the pharaoh, you have the nobles and the priests. Okay, they're on the same kind of next level of the Egyptian order, the natural martial arts order. Number 15, when you think fast, it is irritating and agitating to work in a way that is designed for people that think slow. Okay, so obviously you can make a culture designed for certain groups, not necessarily races, but groups of people that have reproduced in a way that causes them to think in a certain way. 16. The scribes are beneath the soldiers since the scribes deal in presentation and the soldiers deal in application. The soldiers are the living spirit, other than the pharaoh and the priests, of course, while the scribes deal in the written technique. So the soldiers are the living temple compared to the scribes who deal in writing things down in the temple, right? The pyramid text on papyri and so on, right? They're dealing in the written transmission of these ideas versus the spirit in the soldiers. So there's a profound religious component as to why the soldiers are above the scribes. Okay, Imhotep was not above the general army. It was wrong to deify him. This is also, he wasn't just a builder and an architect, he was a scribe, and the scribes used to do certain rituals in his honor. This is also why the natural martial artist is above the unnatural martial arts teacher who has a certain recollection and mastery of the recorded techniques and knowledge, and not the natural spirit that makes the natural the natural. Also why the Igbo leader that naturally emerges is above the Akpara or the elder in the community. Number 17. Next we have the merchants. Okay, so first we have the pharaoh, then we have the nobles and priests, then the soldiers, then the scribes. Next we have the merchants that apply crafts and services ultimately for the interest of the state, right? They apply the crafts. Then we have, basically the craftsmen and so on. Then the peasants that are working their way up, and the servants and slaves. Top martial artist is the pharaoh. Okay, he's the pharaoh, the fair reproductive cycle. We've gone over that in the beginning. Go back to the start if you don't remember. He only needs martial arts senses. Then the martial arts priests and nobles, and the martial arts soldiers, and the scribes, and the merchants, the craftsmen, and the peasants, and the servants, and the slaves. Masonry elevates the scribes, merchants, and craftsmen way above the level they should be, recruiting servants to be to help them do these things. This is a satanic process. How am I doing on time? Well, I'm doing pretty good. Okay, women become demoted because they have proven the Garden of Eden true. Now, can at this point they redeem themselves? I go as far as to say no, it is impossible. Okay, through God all things are possible, but they've turned their back on God through the reproductive process, and they've aimed in the wrong direction. You can't wait till you've eliminated all the children of God for the purpose of elevating yourself through martial arts and intelligence and other social activities and religious activities, and then say, God, we want to be forgiven. Those were our parents. That's what their parents wanted it. They didn't think they were going to live forever. They wanted you to have it. It is God's selection, not the self-selection by selfish cheaters and Apepian trash. Snakes aren't suited to be hawks. Even if you paint them as hawks and put wings on them and give them little chips in their brains. The Pharaoh's position is the only one that is static and permanent. One must protect the Spirit of God and allow him his place. Women not loving and respecting the Pharaoh must be addressed. I've gone over this in the scriptures. I've gone over this in the Egyptian book by Paul Ham and so on. Okay. This must be addressed. They did not, the whole world order would collapse. It wouldn't collapse and be rebuilt. The world order would collapse and the people would necessarily die. They would die. Period. Their spirit would die. The spiritual order would collapse. It wouldn't later be restored. The order out of chaos is an Apepian one, not a Haru, legitimate, truthful, pure truth. Pure spirit from breeding in the right direction. Pay Ra. Homage. Homage. Ham. Miserum. Hamage. Women not loving and respecting the Pharaoh must be addressed. Stoning is symbolic of building the material temple on earth. But Ra cubs ladder, right? Jacob, the J is the hook. Yah and Ra. Ra cubs ladder. Yeah. Does not have Yah does not have a cub. The J is the fisherman's hook, right? The hook punch. Yah is a moon deity. Okay, he is not a legitimate son of Ra. He is a gender-neutral moon deity. Okay, the moon can only be complete when it accepts itself as the eye of Horus. If it becomes a gender-neutral cult, as they have defined themselves, they are illegitimate. Pharaoh's cult is the only static, permanent cult. Everything else depends, its legitimacy depends on its consistency with Pharaoh's cult, because Pharaoh is the ideal man because of loyalty. Okay, loyalty. Who you lay with to God. Consistency over thousands of years of laying in the Spirit of God and not doing other families dirty. How can you sit there and pretend that people who have been sleeping in sexually immoral, gender-neutral Greek fashions, for instance, can then turn around and take the places of the righteous men they have cheated, slaughtered, sabotaged, given diseases, biological, chemical warfare, psyops, and then say, we're in charge now and God favors us. So help me, he does not. The jab. The fisherman, right? The hook punch, the J. Jab, bear, Job. Okay, bear because the J becomes the R. Job, not Rob. Job. Don't determine who. He has a nice job. He should date my daughter. He should date my daughter. Blah, 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 blah. What is this? This is of this world. Sparring is the spirit. Your corporate position is of this world. Sit down, Satan, and shut up. It is not the job that determines the order. It is the jab, straight to the point, timing, spirit, and the other hook punch and the other techniques that one uses. Light contact with the bright morning star, the Spirit of God. This is what ultimately determines the spiritual order. Everything else is satanic garbage, and you all know it, regardless of variation. is the master technique in